Welcome back to the Metro on WDET, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. And are you a child of hip-hop? Were you one of the kids back in the day who knew to protect their neck? Or are you like me, someone who grew up in a so-called hip-hop household listening to Biggie, Tupac, and Big Daddy Kane, just to name a few? Whether it was Kids Bops or Jay-Z, the genre has always been there for me, evolving and changing with the times. And over the past 50 plus years, hip hop has touched almost every aspect of our society, from the way we dress down to the food we eat. Hip hop has had an undeniable impact on the way we interact in our world today.
But Tia, this is something we talk about a lot. Not everyone has had a seat at the table despite their contributions. Women have been overlooked, objectified, over-sexualized, or simply excluded from the conversation altogether. Yet the impact of women in the genre can be seen and felt throughout. Tomorrow, a panel of women will talk about the intersections of hip-hop and design. Michael Ford's Hip Hop Architecture Lecture Series will celebrate and highlight the work of women in hip hop. The panel discussion will discuss the creative solutions formed through the spirit of hip hop, design, and resilience. Michael Ford is known as the hip hop architect and has designed the Hip Hop Museum in the Bronx and the Hip Hop Museum in Memphis, just to name a few. And Jessica Caremore is a world-renowned poet and Detroit's poet laureate. She's also a musical artist and director, and they both join us now. Michael and Jessica, welcome back to the Metro.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Peace. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Mike, we want to start with you. What was it like growing up in the Detroit area with the amount of amazing building designs we have in the city? When did you first fall in love with architecture?
Yeah, so growing up here, my first love and first goal was to be a car designer. But my mind was changed when I found out that a new car comes out every year. So I'm a little kid. It's like a new car gonna come out next year. Another car after that. So you mean my car won't be around forever? And a lady told me I was maybe in like 4th or 5th grade, and she said, you should think about architecture. You can design a building; it's gonna be here forever. It's not gonna get replaced every single year. And that's when I first got introduced to the idea of architecture, the idea that you can create something that will hopefully outlast you.
Yeah, that it will have permanence in a way that a car just simply cannot have.
Exactly.
You can leave your imprint on a city, on an area. Yeah, in a way that a car is going to come and go, literally.
Yeah, and to add to that, I also at that time was figuring out how much cars cost. So I'm like, my parents, much love to my parents. I'm like, we always had like, the hoopty, So I'm like, by the time my parents could save money to buy this car that I might design one day, the new one is going to come out. So, as a little kid, I'm like putting these things together like, man, I got to do something that, again, with architecture, she also told me that no one has to buy the building in order to enter it. Everybody can experience your artistry. So, I'm 4th, 5th grade. I'm putting together this idea of how I can impact people and how I can get the most people to experience what I might create one day.
You had a lot of vision, it sounds like, as a young person.
I would say that comes from some parents who did not stop your imagination.
Love that.
Yeah.
That makes me think about hip hop more broadly because it looms large in many of our imaginations, and it means a lot of different things to different people. And it has played a central role in a lot of different aspects of life. So, Jessica, I want to bring you into the conversation to ask what does hip hop mean to you?
Oh, wow. Hip hop is culture. I grew up on the west side of Detroit, and I was a little girl trying to memorize, Run DMC lyrics, and I loved Public Enemy, and MC Light was God and Goddess at the same time. It was, because I came up in an era, I'm grown enough where hip hop wasn't on the radio. So we had to really search out hip hop, So when we actually got to hear it or got to see a concert, like I remember when Run DMC came and my Adidas was out, like everybody had on Levi's, we all had our Adidas, and we rushed to go see these artists, and so it's a really different time where the access now is so different. Where it was a very niche thing then, and when Ralph McDaniels. I mean, I'm dating myself, but I remember Ralph McDaniels, Video Music Box, when I was like a freshman at Michigan State, and like those spaces were so valuable because hip hop is different. I'm from Detroit, so we weren't backpackers here, but that was a New York thing. A lot of us drove cars. There might have been hoopties, but we drove cars. We had cars, and so it was just different for us. But but I came up, with John Doe, with JD, known as J Dilla, and I've came up with Proof and Slum Village, and Eminem was hanging out around us, and we were at St. Andrews and the Rhythm Kitchen, and I was a poet though as a part of the thing. So even as a poet, I'm not a rapper. By choice, and I can rhyme, but I'm a poet and I'm a writer, and so I'm a part of the conversation. And so, my first big recording was in 1999. My first rapper recording was with Nas, one of my favorite rappers of all time, and so that began my relationship professionally with hip hop. It was always for me just a culture thing, from how you show up, the call and response that I do with my poetry, the importance for me to connect with audience more than just being a nerdy poet in a bookstore, which I'm that too, but I'm also that girl that can be on the road with Talib Kweli and take over an audience. Like by myself with one mic or with a track or with a full band. And me wanting to connect with audience, that's hip hop culture. It's also the griot. It's also storytelling. It's, it's African. It's very much ancient, passed down. But it's the culture. Yeah, from how we move to how we show up. It's the swagger that we bring to conversations. And it's the culture for me. It's the graffiti. It's the break dance. It's also the theater. Like hip hop is also theater, just like it's also architect. It's also theater. So these are some of the elements of hip hop to me that are left out of the conversation, and I love to bring them back in.
And Jessica, for you as a poet, I mean, I hear you listing off the elements of hip hop, but for you as a poet, it sounds like the lyrical prowess has been really something central for you as a practitioner and appreciator of hip hop.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I'm lyricist first, I mean, it's all about the word and writing the word down first, and then putting it in different spaces. I put poems inside of dancers' bodies. To me, that's hip hop. That's, showing movement with the words. I mean, I've done that. I've worked with break dancers and had them break dance with me while I'm doing my poetry. So to me, it's a connected medium. But the heartbeat of it for me is the storytelling and the passing downs, which why I consider myself an MC. While I'm not a traditional rapper, poetry and rap is like kissing cousins, just a small aesthetic difference, because I don't need the beats. The difference, I'm friends with a lot of rappers, and they really rely on and want that beat. And in poetry, for me, the poetry already has musicality. It has its own sound. And so I've been very successful working with producers who understand that if they listen to my sound and follow me, then the track turns out better. So I like to influence the track as opposed to the track influencing what I write.
You're listening to The Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. We're speaking with Michael Ford, a licensed architect who's widely known as the hip-hop architect, and Detroit's poet laureate, Jessica Care Moore. We're learning more about an upcoming lecture series highlighting the intersection of women, hip-hop, and design. So, Michael, I want to bring you back into the conversation because we talked just with Jessica a little bit about what hip-hop actually means. We're getting down towards the end of the conversation, so we want to make sure we keep this short and sweet if we can. But I do want to ask you about hip-hop, its culture, its meaning, and how you manifest it in the world in reality when you create your museums. Like, when you think about hip-hop, what does that design look like?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's been 50 years of design that's been happening in hip-hop. Whether it's been music videos, it's been album covers, there's been an aesthetic, fashion. Think about Dapper Dan and how, he innovated and really revolutionized fashion industry.
Yeah, he did.
So there's been an aesthetic that hip hop has always put out over these past 50 years. And for me, I say my job is easy. I'm coming behind them and, putting all of those aesthetics into a building. But some of the amazing things I do, I partner with artists all the time. Like, Jessica mentioned Nas. He's one of the main artists who's working on the Hip Hop Museum in the Bronx. So I get to work with him and others. But one of the things that I love to do is actually take, lyrics. And we have a program called the Hip Hop Architecture Camp. We teach kids about architecture through hip hop. But we break down lyricisms, look at double entendres, we look at syllable counts, look at letters, vowels, consonants, etc. We find ways to break down what kids love and then reconstruct it as architecture. So the idea is that if you love a sound, if you love music, if you love what's being said, ideally you would appreciate and love the physical manifestation of those words. So it's mathematical genius that our young people are doing that oftentimes they don't get credit for. They're doing, they're doing mathematics that no one can recognize as they freestyle. They're telling a story that makes sense most of the time on a beat that they never heard, and they can hit every piece. It's like complex math that's happening.
I was going to say there's a science to it. It's not just an art. It's a science to it.
Yeah, so that's what hip hop is to me. I mean, hip hop is ever changing, ever evolving, and it's pure genius.
We could talk all day about this, but we're right at the cusp of the end of the. I know we can talk all day, so I do want to make sure that
we got to tell people to show up.
That's the thing, Jessica. We want to talk about the event itself because this is the type of conversation that you're going to get into when you do go to that event tomorrow. So, Jessica, we're going to bring you in really quickly to just talk about the importance of your presence there alongside Tiff Massey and Mama Shu from Avalon Village and Asia Williams, a hip hop architect fellow. Talk about being in that space and the importance of. We got about 30 seconds.
Okay, and Mama Soul.
Mama Soul, sorry.
Yeah, so we got, MCs, we got the people who are looking at the world from a design standpoint because we have used our imagination, like Michael mentioned earlier, to design our lives, literally. And being a woman in hip-hop, whether you're an architect or MC or a poet or a book publisher or whatever, or a dancer, it's always going to be a difficult way to get your imagination across and get it to the masses. And so, just shout out to, MCs like, Mumu Fresh, who's one of my favorites on the mic right now, and Rhapsody, two of my favorites as well. Also my sister Mama Soul out here in Flint. These are artists to me who don't get talked about enough. And when you're a woman in this spice called hip hop, we are always reclaiming space. And I think the conversation tomorrow at 6:00 is going to be amazing. Michael, can you explain where we're going to be tomorrow?
Thank you, Jessica. Perfect segue. Okay.
Yeah, so the event is University of Detroit Mercy. It's at the School of Architecture. It's free. Come out. You don't need to register or RSVP. Show up 6 to 7 p.m. We're having beats and bites, so you can get some food, listen to some music, and at 7 p.m., the panel discussion starts. So, again, you don't need to register. University of Detroit Mercy School of Architecture.
Thank you so much. Michael Ford is known as the hip hop architect and has designed the Hip Hop Museum in the Bronx and the Hip Hop Museum in Memphis, just to name a few. Jessica Care Moore is a world-renowned poet, Detroit's poet laureate, writer, musical artist, and director, and so much more. The Hip Hop by Design panel, part of Michael Ford's Hip Hop Architect Lecture Series, will take place tomorrow at the University of Detroit Mercy School of Architecture and Community Development. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you. See you there. All right.
Coming up next hour, we'll talk Detroit fashion and what it means to you, and we'll open up the phone lines 313-577-1019. This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. And this is the Metro. Stay with us.